Obviously, Reform are coming under heavy fire, online only, thankfully, from Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib. As usual, it's been going on for weeks, hasn't it? This doesn't mean I don't like Ben Habib or Rupert Lowe. I like both characters as individuals, and I've got on with Ben Habib really well over the years. I just don't agree with his stance on reform. I just do not understand why somebody cannot see that from a working class, but I mean, Ben isn't working class, Ben's a bit posh. You know, he went to rugby school, he was head boy there, he's had an exceptional education, he's a multimillionaire. I'm fairly well off, but I'm working class. I know what it's like to live in places that get forgotten by the social and liberal elite. So whilst I completely agree with him on Brexit and other stuff, I disagree with his attitude towards reform. This is the reason I disagree. I disagree because the problems that he nitpicks at about the setup of reform are not problems for ordinary people like me and you. They're not problems for people unless they've got money invested, lots of money. And nobody seems to be kicking off about it from that section of support. So why should it bother us? And this insistence on democratisation of the party, it's an overblown attribute. I'm going to show you an example. The Tory party, they're democratised, so are Labour, allegedly. But guess what? Guess where the clout really is? With Labour, it's the unions, and with the Tory party, it's the middle management. That's the layer of people at CCHQ between the members and the leader. So if you'll notice, with the Tory party, the members can't just insist on a new leader. They don't get that. The 1922 committee is the only body that can insist on changing the leader. And I think it's 42 letters have to go in from serving MPs to insist on that. So why should reform be put under these extra restraints on a leader? Because let's look at it another way. You have to admit, whether you support them or not, that the astounding success they've had in the council elections would not have happened unless people had concentrated on doing that. And that's Nigel, his small team, the volunteers, the candidates and the branches. 400 branches, over 1,000 candidates vetted, 1,500 volunteers, all working hard, knocking on doors, hoping to change politics, and they did it. 2 more results have come in today, 2 more councils where they've romped home to success. So this has been a much needed victory, because this is how you change politics, by getting in among it and getting your own people in. Now, what you've got to look at is if the people who wanted to change Nigel as a leader had joined Reform en masse and had the facility to say, right, we want a new leader, and they'd voted him out, where would we be in the council elections? Because the 2 men asking for this, Ben and Rupert, haven't got anything in place to have fought in the council elections. How would we have done it? Surely if you wanted to have influence, you stay in the party. And Rupert, whilst he has been sidelined, it's because of things that have been going on that needed investigation. And I am assured by people in Parliament there is still an investigation going on about what happened in the office. So I think Rupert's got a lot to offer, but I don't agree with him about his stance on Nigel Farage, because I've been around politics now for 10 years. I've seen what's happened, and every time he gets close to doing something, the far right mantra takes over and it all fizzles out. And UKIP's living proof. UKIP went to the polls, got 4 million votes in 2015. 4 million votes, 1 seat. Even recently, Reform, 4 million votes, just 5 seats. Lib Dems, 3 million votes, 71 seats. It's a corrupted system. We have to get among it somehow to change it. And Reform are the only party actually offering that change. Reform are offering proportional representation and a form of direct democracy, where 4 or 5 times a year there'd be a referendum on big stuff that wastes our money, like HS2 or the rollout, or getting involved with the WHO pandemic treaty, all sorts of things like that. You could have a say in it. And you've got a government that has no backers to please, no massive drug companies to please, no incentive. They're new, they've got no track record. So they're going to deliver honest information, and let's face it, unlike Boris Johnson, they're never going to use communist advisors. So the way I see it, this business of democratising the party, this problem that seems to have been so important to Ben, it's made him leave the party. I'll draw your attention to the fact as well that at the time they asked Ben to step down, they asked David Bull to step down. David Bull stepped down, still goes campaigning. He introduces the big events. He still supports reform and retweets their stuff. So two men get asked to step down from exactly the same position. One man doesn't like it and one man lives with it. They sacked Gawain Towler. They often sack him and then have him back. They only have him when they need him. He doesn't take the hump. He's still on board for reform. And he said to me in a phone call when I said, well, why do you still do it? He said, well, I have to do it. Because what's going on is bigger than Nigel. It's bigger than any other characters. It's our country we're talking about. And I think he means that, as I do. So I'm looking at the vehicle that's got the most parts. I'm looking at the Formula One car that's ready to rock and roll. I'm not interested in trying to get something going that hasn't even built the car yet. That's how I see it. I'm entitled to that. And I have been around these characters a long time. So it's not a preference thing or a likability thing. I think all three characters have their own likability, as any human being does. But this business, I'm sorry, no matter how justified you see it or how justified they feel, they have to accept that all this unrest is a tool to cause division. If you don't think it's a tool to cause division, I'm not saying it's intentional, then all you have to look at is how come the Tories are retweeting Rupert Lowe? This is the Tory party. This is the Tory party who won't even have Lawrence Fox in because he's too extreme. They wouldn't have him as a candidate. They'll suck up round him because he's got a backer with plenty of money. But they won't have him as a candidate because he's too extreme. And Rupert's been very extreme on his comments on immigration, which has attracted this crowd from the right, the far right, alt-right, whatever you want to call it. A bit more right than what I am. But I'm right. I don't know how you describe them. And they're now up in arms because what they want this man who they see as finally understanding what they want. But unfortunately, that won't get a win at the ballot box. That won't win at a general election. What will win at a general election is being sensible enough not to have all your armoury out on display. That's the way Nigel Farage is playing it, which is a cooler approach. You've got to give him his due. He has been around a long time. He has seen it all go tits up before. He's seen UKIP fizzle out to nothing. He's seen the Brexit party hit the doldrums, then they resurrected themselves as the Reform Party. He's seen what being reasonable to the Tories is like because he stood 300 people down. Rupert Lowe was one of them and very willing to do so because deep down Rupert is a Tory that went to Reform. You know, Nigel used to be a Tory. Most people in Reform used to be Tories. The reason they left the Tories is because they're not conservative. So you're looking at two parties that are supposed to represent conservative thinking, but only one is doing so, and that's the Reform Party. Now, Rupert will have to carry on whatever path he's chosen, but at the end of the day, that's no good to me. I don't want him to concentrate. You know, he says about his good name. What's gone on with Rupert Lowe put me off him. I don't see him as any lesser or worse a person than I did before. I think he does some great work in Parliament. And I think online, his reputation and his persona has absolutely flourished. And away from social media, nobody knows it's happened. So he's not been, you know, he's not been a victim here. I mean, he will have been, because obviously the police were involved, and that's the bit I don't understand. Seems a bit over the top, but I don't know what went on. I only know what went on in Parliament, or more about what went on in Parliament, because the woman concerned contacted me after I'd been on Dan Wotton. And I've got contacts in Parliament who also say she was a really good sort, respected, blah, blah, blah. So there's all that there going on. So I'm looking at, what do I want from this? I want a different government. That's what I want from all this. Rupert will have to sort his own life out. He's enough money to do it. So has Ben. All I want from this is what I wanted when I started doing it back in 2015. I want to see some change. I want to see the country in better hands, and we're not going to get it from the Tories. And now the Tories are retweeting Rupert, and because he's called Nigel a viper. So they're retweeting it like, oh, look, he's called Nigel a viper. Well, that doesn't make me think, oh, gosh, is Nigel a viper? Oh, my God, I better read this. I don't think that. I look at the Tories and think, Jesus, you really have got an empty box. You really have nothing to offer. The best thing you've got to offer after over 100 years of having a massive, massive power base in this country is to show a bloke that used to be a Tory that went to the Reform Party, who's now upset with the Reform Party and slagging off the leader. That's the best you've got to offer. It isn't about Rupert Law. I'm not criticising him. I'm criticising the Tories. I'm criticising the Tories that the best they can come up with is basically using someone who's fed up with reform, has got an axe to grind, justified or otherwise, you know, he obviously does in some areas, then that's it. That's the best you've got to encourage us to vote for you. Are you bloody joking? 14 years you've been in, who gave us the Serco contracts for rented houses? Oh, that was the Tories. Who put them in hotels? Oh, that was the Tories. Who gave us Sanctuary City? Wrong again, that was the Tories. Who wrote net zero into law? Oh, that was the Tories. Who put the EV manufacturing fines into law? Oh, that was the Tories. Who caused it up so closely to PESCO that it was basically an endorsement, leaving the ground open now for Keir Starmer to give our military away to Europe? Well, I'm sorry to say it was Theresa May, another Tory. So I'm sorry, but I see the Tories as a complete, you know, if you looked in it, it's empty. It's got nothing to offer. And it's got a few backers now that have turned from backing other people to want to disrupt what's happening with reform. But what they can't seem to get through, and what I keep trying to say to people, I go through my phone all the time looking at messages from people. Okay, if they're sending me links that I've seen a million times, I don't open them. But if they're writing to me saying, June, I'm voting this, I'm doing that, I make a list. And I look at the way the thought process is going. You only need to know how Brexiteers are thinking. You don't need to know what the rest of the country are thinking. You know what they're thinking anyway. They all want to go back in Europe. They're all Remainers, every party apart from Reform. Even the Tories, they want to stay in Europe. They don't want to. Brexit sickened them. They've dug their heels in trying to keep us in. So what I look at is what the people are thinking and what the people are doing. And it's us, me and you, the people, the Reform Party, that are going to change this country. Now, people say, oh, it's part of the same cabal. No, it isn't. Why would they need to do that? Think, be rational. There you are, you're the elite, you want to control the West, you're doing a smashing job, you've got Carney in Canada, you've got New Zealand, you've got Australia, and you've got Europe with those dingbats that run the EU. You're sorted, and guess what? You've just put Starmer into number 10. And guess what? You've got the ear, even if it is only one of his big ones. He's got two. It's like a taxi with both doors open. You've got the king. You've got the king and the Prime Minister. Why would you need to pretend to give us a party called Reform to make us think we've got a choice so we vote for them, but they're really the same old shit? Do you see how ludicrous that is now? They don't need you, they don't want you, they're not interested in how you think, they're not interested in all your complaints, they don't respond to your emails. How much more obvious can I make it to you that reform isn't part of the problem? Reform is the only tangible solution, and it will only give us a slight difference. It will be slight, but that slight difference will be so much better than what we've had. And there's nothing else on offer. So that's my opinion. That's why I do what I do. That's why I support who I do, and I hope I've explained myself. If you don't agree, that's absolutely fine. But I have been doing this a long time, and I've got excellent contacts. I run things by people like retired Tories who have been Conservatives, proper Conservatives, MPs. There is somebody, of course, in the House of Lords I can speak to. And they're sensible people. They're not idiots. So have a think on about all these things about politics. I'm only trying to open it up because I think we deserve to know. That's why I do it. You deserve to know as much as I know, and I've spent a lot of time learning all this, years. It's took me hours every day. My husband's out on a golf course now. I'm sat in here doing this. I've got 3 documents in here I've still got to read. So I learn more about things. I'm not an expert. I've not had a particularly fantastic education, but I'm willing to put the effort in. So you can watch these videos back at any time. and I'll title them up so you can access them easily.